So you mentioned the word systematic. So
Mm,
how do we do both? Because I recently had a colleague ask me, and we're going to get into a little bit more about Lego specifically,
mm,
where how does Lego talk about the benefits of unbounded, playful, play-based learning, but yet Lego does sometimes provide directions to teachers on how they could use the various products and supplies that Lego provides. So can
mm,
you walk us through where that happy medium is?
mm. Absolutely. So what we tend to see is that play exists on a spectrum where free play on the one end is very important, right? It's where you test out your own boundaries, you create and make things out of your interest and what you see around you. And that is important because it drives your own understanding of identity and purpose and choice and so forth. On the other end, you have very directive, instructive, prescriptive practices where you usually sit still, being told what to do, and you get small opportunities to relate to a story or a topic. We feel, and we can see from the evidence, that there's actually a middle spectrum, more like the guidance, that is actually very effective for what teaching should look like. So in Lego education, we are committed to more systematize that approach into formal education where the learning outcome is given. A teacher need to teach science or technology or math. They have a particular time constraint, a particular topic, and they introduce that to the students and say, like, today the objective is to try and test out concepts of force and motion, or being able to look at used particular type of technology, or counting and quantifying particular things. But they do that by giving children the opportunity with the materials to practice these concepts. So how would you find 10 items that are able you can count to 10, or how can you do multiplication with the materials around you? Or here's a little car, try to figure out how much force you have to apply to it and describe different ways it works for you. So we call that a more guided approach, and we use guided inquiry-based approach. So our materials are designed for that particular topic and that particular learning outcome, but teachers set the stage and present the objectives, and then children are given the opportunities to play and experiment and practice these outcomes. And that's the choice and the agency that gives that playful, engaging experience. And that actually means that they remember the concepts and principles much better, but they also are more creative, more critical thinkers, more collaborative through that process.
I love that. And you're more or less foreshadowing, Bo, my next question, which is how can educators in specific ways
Mm,
integrate
mm,
Lego
mm,
materials into learning? Now, we've already talked a little bit about science and math, but I
mm,
don't want our listeners to think, although that obviously is a great way to use Lego
mm,
for counting, for STEM, but even when we look at literacy, when we look at social studies, what are some of the specific ways, maybe in the four content areas,
mm,
science, math, social studies, and ELA or literacy,
mm,
depending on where one is in the world,
mm,
that the educators can really integrate Lego materials? And what would be some of those
mm.
specific tools or I don't want to call them toys, but tools that Lego produces that can help teachers do this?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's a very good question because playful learning can be applied across topics. It's not only for one particular area. It's a process, it's a pedagogy that teachers can apply. From a Lego education point of view, we have figured out that the natural starting point for us is science, technology, engineering, and math because of the very systematicity of the tool, the quality of the materials. You can combine and recombine it. So in Lego education, we have products called Spike, which is a robotics product, where you actually can directly teach science, technology, engineering. You're looking at the standards and the outcomes. You are supported with a lesson that guides you through a process where you equip students to practice these particular type of learning objectives, and you actually create many different ideas for it. So we have a very strong focus on STEM, and one of the new things we're doing is actually making it even more outcomes driven and relevant and simple for educators for science. So just a few weeks ago, we launched a new science product, which means that the majority of all science topics, life science, earth science, physical science, you can teach using hands-on manipulatives like Lego education materials. Not all of them, because we have to figure out what's really relevant for the particular topic. It's also, as you're saying, relevant for social science, for language. And we've had several iterations over many years, and some products still exist. We are still trying to figure out whether we are the most unique, because so many different opportunities exist to use play. But here, what teachers do is to say, now in literacy, we usually read and write. And one of the big studies we did with Cambridge University in UK was, well, you pick a story, like it could be Hans Christian Andersen, A Little Mermaid, or it could be any story you like. And then you try to build part of that story or a character from the story. And you build it out, you share it with other students in your group, and you try to rebuild what could be a different ending or different character for that story. So in reality, you have a story, you have a book, you have literacy, but you invite students to materialize that in hands-on experience. And what we saw is they actually understand the story much better. They are much more engaged because through the materials, they get more committed to it. And they're actually more creative and collaborative because they now get more ideas for it. So it's the same for science and for STEM topics as with social science and other topics. When you physically represent the abstract ideas you have in your head and use multiple modalities and ideas, it's more engaging, it's more creative, you actually remember it much better. But